Okay, let's jump over and talk about another potentially high-scoring game on this week. We have two teams that are notorious for choking it in the end, so we'll see what ends up happening when we put both of them into the same game together. Got the Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons coming off their first win of the season, whereas the Detroit Lions won their second game this last week. Both of these teams trying to find some semblance of a way of getting back into it this season. Guess it's not completely out for either of them, but definitely looking grim for their season-long prospects. And whoever loses this game is, probably out, but should be a pretty fun game. The Falcons have been absolutely abysmal in terms of slowing down anything on defense. They've given up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, the second most to tight ends, the fifth most to wide receivers, and the 10th most to running backs, whereas the Lions have really only been good at slowing down tight ends, and that's also mostly just been by nature of who they played. They haven't really played any good tight ends up to this point. So both of these teams, really bad defense, 55-point over-under. This is going to be a game that you're going to attack heavily in tournaments in DFS this week. Falcons are actually favored to win this one by 2.5. I definitely can see why coming in at home. Both of these teams, I think, have a pretty good shot at pulling this one in. This feels like a toss-up for me. I imagine this spread will get closer to 0 as the week goes on, because neither of these teams really strike me as a team that, like, oh my gosh, that they're going to blow each other out. So it should be a pretty close game regardless. Matthew Stafford, I think, is a good start this week. I know he was a good start last week, and then we got the 3 rushing touchdowns between Deandre Swift getting 2 and Adrian Peterson getting 1. Every single time those guys ran the ball into the end zone, it was just stabbing me in the heart a little bit more, because I was very heavily exposed to Matthew Stafford last week in DFS and even in one of my leagues. So that was a bit depressing, but I think this will be a better game for him. As we mentioned, the Falcons are giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks by far. Like, it's not even close. So Stafford should be a good start this week. Now, DeAndre Swift, coming off of that massive performance, still isn't quite getting the snap and the touch share that we would like to see a second-round pick get, but hopefully that performance that he put up last week will at least get him in the good graces of Matt Patricia and realize that he's probably his best chance at saving his job right now. So I think DeAndre Swift is going to be a good RB2 play this week. Kenny Golladay is a locked and loaded starter every week, and then TJ Hockenson should have a pretty massive day against the Falcons' putrid defense. Adrian Peterson, you could talk me into based on your situation. He's pretty much a touchdown dependent back at this point, especially with DeAndre Swift stealing the majority of the passing work there. Marvin Jones has been absolutely dust up to this point. Last week, we were hoping he would go off against the Jaguars and gave you 2 catches. So very poor performance by Marvin Jones. We'll see what he can do this week. I have him ranked I think he's like 51 right now. So probably not someone I'm looking to start, but if he was going to go off, this would be the week. So if you're ballsy and you really want to play darts with this and just give him one last shot, if he doesn't do it this week, he cannot be rostered for the remainder of the season in my mind. But if he's going to get it done, this is going to be the week. And if he doesn't, Danny Amendola is probably going to have a good game. On the Falcons side, we've seen historically Matt Ryan does not know how to operate sans Julio Jones. Well, Julio Jones is back. Yes, he didn't practice today, but it's Wednesday, veteran rest day. Monitor the practice situation, but he ended up going off of the injury designation heading into last Sunday, so I don't imagine that he's going to be back on it this week. So Julio Jones should be fine. Him and Calvin Ridley are honestly top 10, if not top 5 plays this week at the wide receiver position. Todd Gurley had a down week last week, but I think against the Lions should have a better day. Now, the other pieces here, as we mentioned, Hayden Hurst going against the Lions, the one place that they've been able to slow opposing teams down has been the tight end. Hayden Hurst did get that fluky touchdown last week, but he really has kind of looked lost for this team at this point, so I'm only starting him if I have to. And then Russell Gage had a better week last week, but I don't know. It's just rough for me to start a wide receiver 3 unless you're in a deeper league. I could definitely see him having a decent day, but obviously a pretty clear gap between Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley all the way down to Russell Gage. And then Brian Hill pretty much just remains a handcuff as long as Gurley is getting the touches that he's been getting. Overall, I like the Falcons to win this one. I got them winning 34-31. Yes, another 3-point deficit here. but I expect this one to hit the over by far. Should be a very fun day for fantasy and should get you a lot of points.